This year's annual town meeting will be held on Monday, May 3rd, 2021, on Flahay Field at Westwood High School. Registration begins at 4 p.m. At 4:30, we'll present the awards and the resolutions, and then we plan to open the business of town meeting at 5 p.m. sharp. Here is what you need to know before you go. There will be 22 articles voted on at town meeting, with the first 13 being related to budget and finances. Article 1 is to see if the town will vote to appropriate by transfer from available funds the sum of $20,000 to supplement a fiscal 2021 appropriation related to the DPW street lighting budget.
The DPW street lighting budget had an additional cost of $20,000 related to moving some equipment over on Washington Street when the ICC was taken down. We are closing out some funding from an article at the June 2020 town meeting that's no longer needed to provide for that $20,000.
Article 2 is to see if the town will vote to appropriate by transfer from available funds the sum of $217,500 to supplement fiscal year 2021 appropriations related to the snow and ice budget and ambulance services and equipment.
$217,500 spending in this article, with $150,000 of that coming from free cash for the snow and ice and ambulance revenue that we use each year for any of our ambulance costs.
Article 3 is to see what sums of money the town will vote to raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds and/or borrow for the operation of the municipal departments and public school systems.
A 3.1% increase over our current year. Again, this is the distribution of that budget by category, with the schools in blue and municipal in red.
Article 4 is to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds the sum of $1,304,650 for municipal capital improvements related to the Council on Aging, DPW, Fire, Library, Police, IT, and the Housing Authority. Article 5 is to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds the sum of $1,017,000 for the purchase of school capital improvements, including technology, roofing, furniture, HVAC, and more.
So Article 4 is the municipal capital, $1.3 million, same as this year, funded by free cash. Article 5 is the school capital, just over $1 million. Similar level to this year, funded by free cash.
Article 6 is to see if the town will appropriate $500,000 to pay costs of engineering and construction services related to the town's wastewater collection system. This project will be part of the MWRA grant program.
They have a program where 75% of this will be funded by a grant and 25% through a no-interest loan with MWRA.
Article 7 is to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds the sum of $505,000 for the purchase of fire and sewer improvements.
It includes items for our ambulance service and one item for our sewer stormwater compliance. This article is funded particularly with ambulance revenue and sewer revenue to fund those items. This year does include purchasing a new ambulance for $380,000. So this article is a bit higher than previous years, particularly because it includes the new ambulance.
Article 8 is to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds the sum of $1,060,000 for the purchase or lease of improvements to the multi-purpose field at the high school and pool maintenance.
The proposal is to spend $1,060,000 for two items that I mentioned: pool repairs and the replacement of the multi-turf field at the high school in the back.
Article 9 is to see if the town will vote to rescind any authorized but unissued borrowing authorizations related to the construction of the police station.
So our police station project was approved for a $13.2 million borrowing. When we actually issued the bond, We issued a bond for $12.7 million and received $450,000 in bond premium. So the project's completed, all of our debt is issued. What we're doing here is just going in and taking back or rescinding that $450,000 in debt that's still sitting out there as an open credit line.
Article 10 is to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds the sum of $125,000 for the stabilization fund.
Our stabilization fund is our main savings account, a very important component of that AAA rating. So our town meeting article in Article 10 is to transfer $125,000 from free cash into this account to allow us to remain on track with our policy with this fund. Again, this is the same amount that we've done the last several years in this article.
Article 11 is to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds the sum of $1,490,000 to the OPEB Liability Trust Fund.
This is our funding and progress for the liability for OPEB, which is our post-employment funding, health insurance for employees when they retire. You can see on the graph that through some changes in our healthcare plans in previous years, FY13 and 16, we've been able to build this funding up to closer to where it needs to be to address the liability. We now just do a $25,000 increase to that amount each year, and that has allowed us to stay on target with what we're required to do to address this liability.
Article 12 is to see if the town will vote to appropriate a sum of money to purchase a DPW roadside sweeper truck and a fire multi-purpose vehicle, and to determine whether this appropriation shall be raised by taxation, transfer from available funds, borrowing, or otherwise.
A $250,000 roadside sweeper for the DPW department and a $400,000 multi-purpose vehicle for the fire department.
Article 13 is to see if the town will vote to appropriate, borrow, or transfer from available funds an amount of money to pay costs of design development associated with the construction of the new Hanlon Elementary School.
The larger vote on the overall new project would occur at a special town meeting in the fall, in October. This is to authorize the building committee to continue their work from now until the fall so that they don't get off track in the schedule for that new school project.
Article 14 is to see if the town will vote to raise, appropriate, and/or transfer a sum of money to reconstruct Cranston Avenue.
And we obtained a cost estimate from Beta Group from our pavement management program that read out to approximately $31,000. So obviously that's has a pretty decent contingency built into it. So the hope is that it comes in a little bit cheaper, but that would be ultimately the worst case scenario. And that $31,000, as Chris had mentioned, would be divided by 2. The town would absorb 50% of that cost. And then the remainder of the balance would be split 3 ways from the 3 abutters on Cranston.
Article 15 is to see if the town will vote to accept municipal ownership of a portion of the former Westwood Lodge property encompassing the soccer lacrosse field.
This was approved some time ago and the construction has actually begun, and the intention was to do this at the last town meeting in 2020. As a non-financial article, it was put off. So the Green Company still owns both of these properties, the soccer lacrosse field, and then when we speak next about the lot 1. So the soccer lacrosse field is being leased to the town, and it's continuing in its traditional use as a lacrosse and youth soccer field. And we'd like to take ownership of the property so that we can continue that indefinitely.
Article 16 is to see if the town will vote to accept municipal ownership of a portion of the former Westwood Lodge property and to authorize a long-term lease of said property to LifeWorks, Inc. for the construction and operation of a 5-unit group home for persons with disabilities.
So that property is currently still owned by the Green Company. It's leased to LifeWorks. The deed would have the town take over the property and also take over the lease, so that the town would now become the party that leased the property to LifeWorks.
Article 17 is to see if the town will vote to approve certain amendments to the Westwood zoning bylaw as they relate to medical centers or clinics and offices of healthcare professionals.
Is just updating the table of use chart to the Office of Healthcare Professional, replacing that old term, Office of a Doctor or Dentist, and then adding the medical centers, prohibiting it in all zones except for in the University Ave mixed-use overlay district at University Station.
Article 18 is to see if the town will vote to approve certain amendments to the Westwood zoning bylaw as they relate to hospitals and overnight care facilities.
Prohibits hospitals in all zoning districts across town, throughout town.
Article 19 is to see if the town will vote to approve certain amendments to the Westwood zoning bylaw as they relate to substance rehabilitation or treatment facilities.
It creates a new substance rehabilitation facility overlay district, adds a clear definition. It updates the existing definitions to make clear what's a medical center, what's a doctor, office of a healthcare professional, what's a treatment facility. And then there's a full new section of the zoning bylaw is proposed, a new 9.8. The purpose is to restrict and regulate any substance abuse facilities if they were to come to town.
Article 20 is to see if the town will vote to approve certain amendments to the zoning bylaw as they relate to firearms and explosives sales and services.
This article proposes prohibiting firearms and sales in the local business A and the local business B zoning districts. Those are the commercial business districts downtown on Washington Street and High Streets, but it will continue to be allowed in the highway business and the industrial zone.
Article 21 is to see if the town will vote to approve certain amendments to the zoning bylaw relative to temporary structures and uses.
This is an article for certain uses and events that are very short-term, such as one-day events or events that may only last a few days. For uses that are less than 6 months, applicants can apply directly to the building commissioner for a building permit. This would allow an administrative process for applicants to file for these short-term events or uses directly to the building department.
Article 22 is to see if the town will vote to approve certain housekeeping amendments to the Westwood zoning bylaw.
The last article is a housekeeping article, which is really no substantial changes. It's just correcting some number typos that we had noticed due to eliminating an old section reference and then updating the old Board of Selectmen term to be Select Board.
As a reminder, this year's annual town meeting will be held on Monday, May 3rd, 2021 on Flahi Field at Westwood High School. Registration begins at 4 p.m. The awards and resolutions begin at 4:30, and the business of town meeting begins at 5 p.m. Please remember to bring a mask.